cake covered with buttercream, we want to smooth it out as much as we can without, too much fuss before we put on the fondant. So I have made up a nifty little tool. I don't know if you can see that very well. It is a stenciling material, and I have cut kind of a funky shape with it, if you can see the shape. I've got a part here that is really rounded. I've got a flat side. I've got a concave side, kind of a sharper curve, and then down at the bottom, a really pretty sharp curve. You could make it, just a point altogether. But this way, this is a really cool tool to be able to scrape off the frosting into the shape that you want it to be without having too many problems. And you can turn it whatever way you need it to be in order to scrape off what you need. So anyway, I'm going to use kind of this rounded part right here because that's a little bit, more like the pumpkin shape. So I'm just going to kind of go like this and use it and kind of scrape down. And clean it off. Scrape down some more. And clean it off. We're not going for perfection. We're just smoothing off the rough parts. Okay, so keep on smoothing a little bit here and there. When you get into the corners here, you kind of want to, take out some of the frosting because there's a little excess built up. That's where your, sharper corner can come in. And you kind of just go like that. If you need it angled a little bit more, you can do that. And just take off what you need. And that's all. So there you go. That's my nifty little tool for sculpting cakes.
Got another question for you.
Okay.
It says, what is your favorite type of cake to use for carving, and do you freeze it first?
Okay, my favorite type of cake, I don't have a favorite recipe I prefer white cake or I prefer chocolate cake. It's just any kind of a pound cake is really good for sculpting. You want it to be something that's going to be firm enough to hold up, but you still want it to be, moist and not dry. People are going to eat it, so you want it to taste good. But yeah, I go with a pound cake, or I just use just about the same recipe or the same style of cake for every cake that I do. I don't have very many variations of styles of cake. So I would refer you to my my baking guide that I have on CakeFu. Do we have a link for that, Bobby?
I can look it up. I'll have it in just a few minutes.
Okay. So my baking guide, I actually have a guide that talks about all the different types of cakes. I'm not a pastry chef, so I can't say that it's 100%, pastry chef approved. But it's my way of explaining things, and it works well for me. So that's what I go by, and I hope that Bobby can find a link for that and get that for you, and then you can see. And that's it's a kind of a layer cake, or a kind of a hybrid between a sponge cake and a pound cake. It's not a true pound cake, but it's pretty close.
While I'm pulling up that link, there's another question.
Okay.
Someone didn't quite catch, what's the material of that tool that you made?
Okay, the material is a stenciling material. It's actually a really thick stenciling material. There is some kind of I don't know if it's like a mylar or something that they make stenciling material out of. This one I actually got at Walmart. It's a really thick stenciling type of material. If you're hard pressed and can't find this, vinyl will work. Your vinyl mats that you usually roll things out on. Cut a piece of that. It's a lot more flexible, and so it may not be quite as easy to work with, but it'll work. Basically anything that's kind of plasticky that is flexible. I've actually heard of people taking like a Sprite bottle, a 2-quart, or what do they call it? Plastic bottles, like the 2-quart plastic bottles, and they'll cut pieces out of that because it's, kind of a harder plastic and can bend easily. So there's that. Carve out the. Oops.
So I just dropped a link into the chat box for the training guide of yours.
Okay.
So if anyone wants to go in the chat box, and some people aren't on the chat box, so should I read it out loud too?
Yeah, if you're not on the training or on the chat box.
Yeah, if you're not on the chat box, the website to get the free training guide is www.cakefu.com/master series. I can make it shorter, but this is kind of long.
Put it on the lower third.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there we go. Where it says like company name, is that what you do? Or let's put it on right here.
Yeah, or you can do overlay.
Oh, overlay, okay.
Okay, just about there. Sorry. I am sometimes too much of a perfectionist and have to try and smooth things out completely. So we're going to try and be less of a perfectionist today so we can get it done. Okay, so there we have it. A lot more smooth than you could get with just a cake spatula. And so yeah, that's how I get my sculpting done with my frosting. Okay, now we're going to move on to the fondant portion. I'll let this sit for a minute. In fact, I'm going to, as soon as Bobby's done, have him put it in the fridge. Okay. You see how it's kind of, it's not perfect all the way around. You can see as you're turning it, some of it goes this way, some of it curves a little bit more. And that's the cool thing about, stuff like this, because it doesn't have to be perfect.
Okay, it's in the lower thirds too. It's kind of a long link. I thought I could have.
All right, so there you go. There's the link for you guys. If you want to take a look at that. All right, we are going to, for our surface, put in a mat and we'll roll out some fondant. Okay. The mat that I have today is not, I wouldn't say it's my favorite mat, but it works. It is the Wilson one that's got the little bullseye thing in the middle. A lot of people have problems with this one because it slips around, it slides around, but the secret to that is a little bit of water on your surface will actually keep it from sliding around. So if you put it down on a dry surface, it's going to slip around on you a lot, and it's going to be impossible to get the fondant rolled out. But when it's on a wetter surface, just with a paper towel, do a quick wipe down, and then it's nice and firm. It's not going to go anywhere. Let me actually do a quick wipe at the bottom here. Okay. And there we go.
Says, Amelia, thanks for the great work. Would you please recommend an anti-humidity frosting other than the buttercream family? So I really don't like the way it tastes.
Anti-humidity. Boy, these anti-humidity questions are tough for me because I've always lived in a desert. And so I don't have any super great answers for you. I don't know, does anyone know about like a Swiss meringue buttercream, are they not good with humidity? I know that I've heard some talking about some Swiss meringue buttercreams that are 30%. I believe Lauren Kitchens has a recipe that's good. You might want to look at. Again, I can't vouch for humidity issues. But I don't know. I'm sorry, I can't answer that one for you. Okay.
This isn't a question per se, but it's a suggestion by Chef Ramona that as far as different types of mats, she said this one wasn't your favorite one. She said that those cutting mats that are color coded for meats and such work really good.
Oh, really? Okay. Can you find ones that are big enough that will cover a large amount?
No.
I know there's a vinyl mat out there. I think it's just called The Mat. But that one's a really awesome one because I love to work with vinyl when I'm rolling out my stuff. It's not the most food safe thing. I make sure I've washed it. But The Mat is the type of vinyl, I believe, that is actually food safe and can be used over and over again. So that's one that is worth looking into. A lot of times I will just roll my fondant out right on the surface, unless it's really big and I need it to, need to be able to pick up the mat. If it's a smaller tier, I'll just roll it right out on my counter because it's really not that big a deal. Okay. Okay. I'm sure most of you know what a dusting cup is. Just a little bit of cornstarch inside of a nylon. This one doesn't like to let go of it. Some nylons, the cheaper ones, the powder will come out really, really fast. You have to be careful. And this must have been an expensive nylon, a very expensive nylon, because it doesn't want to come out. So, and just a little bit on the surface. You do not want to use very much, especially if you live in a dry place. Because if you live in a dry place, you're going to have issues with the fondant drying out. If you live in a humid place, you could probably get away with using more of the cornstarch. So, okay. And just there.
So I have another question for you. Do some people use other things other than cornstarch?
Some people use like a powdered sugar, but in the end, it ends up being more sticky than you want it to be. So, yeah, I wouldn't recommend. If you wanted to do like a combination of cornstarch and powdered sugar to, kind of counteract the drying out part of things, then I guess you could try that. Okay, we need our cake batter. So before we do that, I was going to actually take some fondant and kind of sculpt a little bit of cheeks for our little guy here.
There's a spray bottle in there.
Yeah. Okay, when you check out the cake, when you pull it out of your fridge, sometimes it's moist, sometimes it's not. If not, a good spray bottle spritzer that's got a little bit of you don't want to drown this with water. So just a tiny bit, little tiny squirts. And that will make your surface sticky so that you can do stuff with it. I'm actually going to take and put a little bit of cheeks on our guy here. So I'm going to put a little bit of fondant on underneath so that we've got a little bit of room to play with the cheeks. Okay, and this doesn't have to be, it's not rocket science. And since he's kind of a, cartoony type of face, we really don't need it to be exact anyway. So, okay, so here we go. We're going to add like a nose and eyebrows and things like that, but we will actually add that on top of the buttercream, or the fondant. Okay, so here we go. Here's our little pumpkin dude. Should we give him a little bit of a chin? That's good, a little bit of a chin. Okay, right about there. He's gonna be a chunky little guy. Okay. All right. Doesn't have to be perfect. We're going to be able to manipulate it once we get the fondant on. Again, we want this fondant to be able to stick to the other fondant. So either a little spray or, paint it with a little bit of water or gum glue, and then you're set. So, okay, we're going to take our fondant and put it over now. There we go. All right, I'm going to move over here so you guys can see. All right, so we've got our indent in the top. We want to make sure that we cover. I always start from top to bottom, try to get all the air bubbles out of the top, and then work your way down. If you start on the sides and then try and come back up to the top, you're going to end up running into problems of air bubbles, which nobody likes. Okay, and my fondant is a little bit on the thicker side today. I'm using my not so favorite brand, but it'll work. And today was kind of a let's throw things together kind of day. So, okay, just keep on moving down. You smooth down, you pull out away from the cake. Pull the fondant from the bottom away from the cake, and then you kind of bring it back in. And that's what's going to smooth things out for you. I'm going to be turning some holes here at this end. I'm going to cut off a little bit. Your fondant at the bottom is too heavy. It can pull at your fondant and cause problems. So just cut around. Get some of that off of there. Oh, where is my pastry now? I don't see it here. Okay. Thank you. Pastry wheel. That's a much better option for cutting off the fondant. Okay, so here we go. This is our front of our little guy. Funny little dude. Okay, and just keep on smoothing down as you go. Try not to let it fold, because if it folds, then you're, then you've got wrinkles in it. Although with this, it's not that big deal, because we're going to add lines and creases and wrinkles into him anyway, which is why this is such a good project for someone who's, I wouldn't say beginner, but not, it's not a terribly advanced project. Okay, so then we're going to just take our pastry wheel. Whoops, I gotta smooth them down a little bit more here. Pastry wheel along the bottom. And there we go. Wait. I've got to cover pumpkin. Okay, and then you can just go and smooth it down a little bit here. A lot of times when you're doing a smoother cake, you'll actually use one of these and smooth everything down, but it's kind of harder to do with a sculpted cake. So I tend to just use my hands. And that's where a sculpted cake is actually fun and good because you don't have to worry about it too much. Okay, so here's our little guy. You can already see where we're going to be putting his mouth, where his cheeks are, so we can start, working that way on him. I'm going to take my hands and just kind of smooth down these lines a little bit more, kind of just bring in the accent of them, kind of define it a little bit more. And there are places here where I think, oh, you know what, this needs a little bit of movement. So I'm just going to take my hand and I'm just going to kind of give it another line. So it's not, it's not rocket science. You just kind of add something wherever. And I'm just using my thumb, to start off, just to give me an idea of where to go. So we're going to just kind of do some lines here and there. And then I can come back through right there and see we've got some definition going now. Okay, so now we're going to come back through with the tool. Okay, my favorite tool is not here. Okay, it's similar to this, but it's more of a rounded. This one works though. So we're going to actually just take this little guy and we're going to run him down our main creases because that's going to give us more of a defined line for our pumpkin. And let's go down main and see that it's becoming a little bit more defined. I hope you guys can see the details on this. Okay, so we're going to take, and now we're just going to kind of go wherever and just make some marks and start from the bottom and come up and make sure we've got our fondant folded under down here so it doesn't look like he's fondant. We want him to look like a pumpkin. Okay. All right. Do a few more lines here. Stick them down here. Okay, do some lines up. Okay, so now we have a little bit more definition. And we don't need to go crazy with the lines. And if you want to, you can. I think the more lines and definition you have in him, the more you can make him, I don't know, more spooky or more, old looking, that kind of thing. We're going to do a little bit of detailing right here. Stick him in there. And bring up so it looks like he has his chin right here. I'm going to just come up and a bit of detail right there. And if you get a little out of control, just smooth with your finger and everything goes back the way it should be. I work with my hands a lot when I'm doing these kind of things. Okay, so there we go. We've got some shape here. We're going to actually add some real detailed lines here in his cheeks. Because this is the focal point, I kind of want it to be a little bit more dramatic. So we're going to put in some extra lines here on his cheeks and face. He's not too, cartoony. We want him to kind of not really look real necessarily, but just not too cutesy. Okay, so there we go. We've got some real lines in there. Kind of fun. Okay, so now we get to work on his face a little bit. So now we're going to take and do. First thing I'm going to do is his mouth, because I want him to have kind of an open mouth a little bit, not too much of an open mouth. So maybe
should have thought ahead on that one, carved out some of his mouth.
But here we go. We can kind of just squish things around a little bit and make room for his mouth. And if you end up squishing too thin and you start to see stuff through, that's okay. We're going to put some black in there. Okay. So all right, we've got a little bit of there. We're not going to make them perfect. We want them to have a little bit up here that's kind of kind of like hot kind of thing. Yeah. We don't want them totally geometric and perfect. We want them to be fun, right?